Well, hey, students, so excited to be here with you tonight. My name's Jessie Nelson, and tonight we are wrapping up our series, It's Complicated. Now, we've been in this series, this is week 4, where we're talking all about relationships, and the truth is relationships can be complicated, but they are so worth it. And so for the last couple weeks, we've been trying to give you some advice, look at some biblical stories of people that got it wrong, and even last week, give you a bunch of just like question and answers about relationships. And tonight we're wrapping things up, and we are going to start with a cautionary tale from a biblical character, but also I thought it'd be fun to share about a cautionary tale of my life, because the truth is that us as your youth pastors, we've gotten things wrong in our life, and we want you to learn from our mistakes. But for this one, I got to kind of take you back all the way back to when I was in elementary school, and I did prepare a photo. Here she is. She is iconic. She is the moment. She is sweaty after softball in 4th grade. All right, take that away, please. Bye, girl. Okay, so that was Jessie in 4th grade. And Jessie in 4th grade had some really great friends. I moved to a new school in 4th grade, and I went from going to like no friends to having a lot of friends, and we were obsessed with each other. It's kind of like how girls are sometimes, where you meet somebody fresh and you just decide, wow, you're the greatest person I've ever met. I want to spend all of my hours with you. And that's how it was with these friends. We would do sleepovers and hangouts and parties. Everybody would celebrate their birthdays together. It was the best. And we had one friend who was kind of the host of all of the parties, and her name was Emily. Can everyone say Emily? Okay, Emily had the perfect house for our sleepovers and our parties, because Emily was an only child, and she had 2 parents and a whole house. And so she was down on the basement level. She had like a living room and a bedroom. And in the backyard, there was a pool and a hot tub and a trampoline. But not only that, like her parents were prepared for people to come over. So they had like a mini fridge with treats and drinks and snacks everywhere. And her parents were awesome, and we really enjoyed being at her house. And honestly, her parents were also pretty chill. They had 2 rules for us. The first one, nobody dies. And what I can say now being a full adult, nobody ever died at these sleepovers. And the second rule was no sneaking out. We broke that rule almost every sleepover. It was bad. And there was one sleepover that I can remember in particular where we decided to all come together. And Emily said, hey girls, when you're packing your bags, bring some extra toilet paper, because we're going to go over to Cameron's house and we're going to TP his house. Now, what this means is we gathered toilet paper and we were going to throw the toilet paper all over his house. That's vandalism. And I did break a crime. I did break the law by doing this. But me and my friends weren't thinking about that because we were kids. And so we all brought our toilet paper, our stuff to go throw in his yard, and we go to the sleepover. We have a great time. It's awesome. And then it's about midnight. Somewhere between midnight and 1 o'clock. And we decide this is our moment. So we all put on all black. We open up her little sliding glass door. We crawl through her backyard. We go over the fence, and we head to Cameron's house. And we go bananas. We're throwing toilet paper, and some people brought like mashed potatoes. We were just like throwing things everywhere. It was a mess. And then we go back to Emily's house. We crawl over the fence, crawl through the yard, and we go to open up her sliding glass door, and it's locked. Yeah. And so we start blaming each other. Who locked the door? Who did this? Come on, it's your fault. And then somebody goes, hey, Emily, do you see the note on the door? Her mother had put a note on the door that said, hey, girls, I told you not to sneak out. You can sleep outside. And then we turn, and all of our sleeping bags and our blankets and our pillows are on the ground. And so that night, people were sleeping on the trampoline, on patio furniture. One of the girls slept just on concrete. And that was our punishment for breaking the rules and theoretically breaking the law. It was not a good choice. And I say that, one, not to encourage you to toilet paper people's house. You probably shouldn't do that. But I tell you this because prior to these girls, I'd never snuck out of the house in my life. I was very afraid of my parents, and they set some rules. And one of the rules was no sneaking out. It's dangerous. And so I never snuck out because I was very afraid. But there was something about getting with these girls that just changed how I thought about things. I felt like the rules didn't matter as much, and ultimately, like, they impacted me in a negative sense there. But also, these girls had a really positive impact on my life too. I mean, they were my friends. They impacted my fashion and the movies that I saw and the music that I listened to and the foods that I liked. Like, they impacted me in a positive way, but also they caused me to do things that I knew I shouldn't do. And the truth is that when we have people that are close to us, they impact how we live our lives. And that leads me to one of my points that I want to share with you tonight. It's this: the people closest to us have the biggest impact on our lives. The people that you would qualify as your best friends, your ride or dies, your close friends. And I'm not talking about those random people that you see like every couple months. I'm talking about your best friends that you've shared everything with. Or for some of you, this could be the people that you're dating or people in your family. Maybe you have a cousin you're really close with or a sibling. Like, these people make an impact on your life. And so it's really important for us to be very wise about how we choose these people. I would call these our inner circle people. To choose very wisely who these people are. And the Bible gives us like a warning of this. And we read about this in Proverbs 13:20. It says this: walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get in trouble. This is not the first time you've heard this verse this year. We've literally talked about this verse because it's so important who you have in your life, because the people closest to you will impact the choices that you make. And I've seen that in my life, and I bet many of your leaders have also experienced that in their life as well. But like I said, in this series, we're looking at cautionary tales of people in the Bible that got it wrong so that we can learn from them. And tonight I'm bringing you a story that I love and I think shows us so well how careful we need to be about who gets close in our life. And we're talking about a guy named Samson. Can everyone say Samson? Okay, yeah. Now, there's some of you in the room that you have grown up in church. You probably saw in a picture Bible when you were a kid, like this ripped guy with like really long hair. That is Samson. And there's some of you thinking, I've heard this story. I know. I've learned the lessons, but maybe haven't. And maybe there's some people in the room that are not familiar with this story at all. So whether you know it really well or this is the first time you've ever heard this name in your life, we're going to dive into this story. But to understand it, we got to go back a little bit and learn about the context and kind of history of his story. So we're going to start with his parents. Everyone say parents. Okay, so Samson had parents who thought they would never become parents. I mean, they thought they would never, ever have babies. They struggled with infertility issues, meaning that they just couldn't get pregnant. And for years they tried and they prayed and they wanted a child so bad, but it just wasn't happening for them. And then out of nowhere, an angel appears and shows up to Samson's soon-to-be mom and says, hey, lady, you want to be pregnant? And she said, yes, literally yes. I would love to be pregnant and have a baby. And the angel said, well, God's going to give you a baby, but this baby has a very special purpose on their life. Like, this baby is going to be different than all other babies, and because of that, there's things that you have to do as a pregnant lady and how you have to raise him as a child that is going to look a little different. At that point, she was willing to do anything to have a child. So she's like, yeah, I'm good, but you're going to have to check with my guy. So then the angel appears to her husband and says, hey, guy, your wife's going to have a baby. You guys are going to have to treat him different. He can't drink wine. He can't have any grapes of any kind. He can't have alcohol. He'll never be able to cut his hair. And he can't touch dead things. No carcasses for him. Avoid all of that. And for the parents, they're like, okay, we'll literally do anything. They agreed, and she gets pregnant. And then, she goes 9 months and then has her baby, and they name him Samson. And I think what I love about Samson's story is he's just he's a regular guy with an extraordinary call on his life. And I feel like there's some like mirroring between him and like how we live as Christians, because Samson was living at a time where people just were living their life, but he had to live differently. He had to look differently. He had to think differently. His life did look different, and he was not perfect. And so he messed up. There's times that he made mistakes, there's times he made choices, and times that he broke all of the rules that God had for him, but yet he had a heart for God. So he kept coming back, and he kept apologizing and making things right, and I feel like that's a relatable piece of his story, because as Christians, like, there's ways that we have to live that look a little different than other people. And so things are going pretty well in Samson's life, and then enters in Delilah. He sees Delilah, and he falls in love with a girl he should not fall in love with. She is literally his enemy. Like, maybe them as individuals, no, but their cultures, their groups, their tribes were literally enemies. And he didn't care. He said, she's beautiful, I love her, and I want to be with her for the rest of my life. And so they decide to get into a relationship, and they don't get married, they just moved in together, which is a complicated situation in itself. But what we actually find out as we're reading this story, Samson is experiencing it, but as we're reading this story, we come to find out that Delilah didn't just pop into his life out of nowhere. No, she was sent there as a spy. She's literally sent there to try to destroy Samson. See, a bit earlier in Samson's story, he goes and kills a bunch of Philistines. And Delilah is a Philistine, which is literally an enemy of God at this point. We've heard about the Philistines when you hear the story of David and Goliath. They're no good people, causing a lot of drama, a lot of problems. And so Samson falls in love with Delilah, but Delilah doesn't fall in love with him. The purpose of her being there is to destroy Samson and ultimately to figure out what makes him so strong. And what we find out is that the thing that makes him strong is that he's never cut his hair. The length of his hair causes him to be super strong. And he is very strong, stronger than Josh, stronger than anybody you've probably ever seen in your life. He was very strong. And so Delilah, the whole point of her being there is to figure out, okay, how did you get so strong and how do we defeat you? He had a spy living in his house. And so things were going well till they weren't, because it was a very bad relationship. And so Delilah starts to ask him, okay, why are you so strong and how would somebody defeat you? That's kind of weird. Well, we are going to actually read about this exchange. First Judges chapter 16, it says this. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me what makes you so strong and what it would take to tie you up securely. That's a weird question. That's a red flag. That is odd. But Samson gives a response. He said this, if I were tied up with 7 new bowstrings that have not been dried, I would become as weak as anyone else. So do you know what happens? Samson goes to sleep. Delilah ties him up, and then in the middle of the night, Delilah goes, Samson, the Philistines are here to kill you. Help! And do you know what happens? He busts through the strings, and he goes downstairs, and he takes care of business, all right? So her plan didn't work. And so, again, she asks him, okay, what would actually tie you up? What would be the thing to overcome you? Come on, tell me. And then Samson gives her another reason. And then, again, she ties him up. She calls in the middle of the night, Samson, the Philistines are here to kill you. And then he breaks out of that. So this is twice now that she has pushed boundaries, that she's messed things up, that she is trying to hurt him and put him into danger. And it all kind of gets to this big epic moment that we're going to read about in verse 15. Then Delilah pouted. The Bible literally says that she pouted. She pouted and said this, how can you tell me I love you when you don't share your secrets with me? You've made fun of me 3 times now, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong. The Bible then says she tormented him with her nagging day after day after day until he was sick to death of hearing it. So she's whining, she's pouting, and he just eventually breaks. And he tells her, finally, Samson shared his secret with her. My hair has never been cut, he confessed, for it was dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. So he gives her what she wants, the secret. But again, to him, he thinks he's in a relationship with somebody that he can trust. But she's now proven that she can't be trusted. And so do you know what happens? Well, let me fill you in. Again, this story is so long and so good, and I wish we could cover all of it. But ultimately what happens is he goes to sleep that night and she shaves his head. She takes all of his hair off and he becomes weak, because that's the thing. As long as he had his long hair, he was super strong, like literally like a superhero. And she takes that away, and ultimately his story ends in tragedy where he dies because of this. It's a long, tangled story. And again, if you haven't heard this story before, I would recommend you reading the rest of it. But his story is like very dramatic, very large, very big. It feels like a movie. But it's one that actually can be so true for so many of us, is that if we are not careful with the people that we have in our inner circles, we might end up in a situation similar to Samson. Now, not dramatic, probably not dying, but hurt because we trusted the wrong people. Hurt because we didn't pay attention to red flags in our relationship. And so what I want to do now is recap many of the red flags that he ignored because he was just obsessed with this person and didn't ask the question, is this a good person to have in my life? So let's walk through some of those red flags. They don't respect your boundaries. This is a red flag. If you've set a boundary and said, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, I'm not going to do this, and if they cross those boundaries and don't respect them, they're not a person that should be in your inner circle. For Samson, Delilah constantly were pushing boundaries that he had set. And even for him, he crossed personal boundaries just by having her in his life. So, red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 is this: their actions don't match their words. Delilah said that she loved him, said that she cared about him, and yet she did not show that. She did not treat that. She did not act in love to him. And this is a red flag that early on actually we can see in people in our lives. That if they are not willing to do the things that they say they're going to do, or if they say they live one way and they act another way, those are not necessarily people that you want in your inner circle, that get to carry the burden of your biggest secrets, that get to give you advice and be there for you. If they are not doing what they say they will, that probably is a red flag right there. The next one is this: they use guilt or pressure. Verse 15 shares that exactly. Delilah's like, well, if you really loved me, and I want to be like real for you guys right now. If you have somebody in your life that uses that phrase, if you really loved me, you would X, Y, and Z. And it's like things that you're not comfortable with, things that you've already said no to, things that aren't good for you, things that you know are at tension with who you are as a person. Like, that's manipulation, and that's not good. And he was experiencing it right there. She's using guilt and pressure. Okay, next one. They repeatedly put you in bad situations. Now, Delilah's situations led him to death. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to have this experience in life, but I will say this. If you are dating or best friends or really close to somebody that is putting you in dangerous or tough or embarrassing situations, that's not somebody that is prioritizing your health or your safety. They're thinking about themselves. So if they're putting you in unsafe situations, that's probably a red flag. Okay, next one right here. They care more about what they gain than your safety. Delilah, again, is a perfect example of this. She didn't care that he was going to die. She was getting her bread, getting her money, and she didn't really care what happened to him after. And I want to be honest with you. There will probably be people in your life that are there because they seem to gain something from you, whether that's emotional security, whether that's status, whether that's money or time or energy, and they will prioritize what they get rather than your safety, and that's something to be looking out for. Okay, I got one last. They cause you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And these don't have to be big, outlandish things, but maybe you're starting to act and do things that normally you wouldn't do because you feel pressure or guilt or all of the other red flags that we see right here. I mean, like, I experienced that with my friends. Like, I found that I was acting different when I was around them. And if those were supposed to be my closest friends, the ones that cared for me and wanted me to live the best life that I possibly could, one that honored the Lord because they knew I was a Christian, I was allowing their influence to change the way that I lived in my life. And I think that all of us maybe have had this experience in life But what we have to understand, and is so important from Samson's story to mine, to maybe ones that you've experienced as well, is my main point that I have for you tonight, and it's this. Letting the wrong people close to you can cause you more than you realized. It might not cost you your life, but also it could. Like you right now might be hanging out with people that are trying dangerous things, that are doing dangerous things, and because everybody else is doing it, you want to participate. But your life and your body and your mind and your soul is not worth a social group. For some of you, it's what reputation you have. It's the legacy that you want to leave behind. It's how you treat people, how people perceive you, that might be costing you because you have the wrong people in the wrong place. Now, I'm not saying tonight you need to get rid of everybody in your inner circle and you need to come and be by yourself and be a loner. But what I'm saying and encouraging you to do is to go to these red flags. And actually right now we're going to put those up again. We're going to go back over here, live perfect. Right now I'm going to give you all a second to take a picture on your screens at your campuses right now. I want you to take a picture of these red flags because these are the things that you should be thinking about if they are crossing boundaries, if they are pressuring you. And I want you to evaluate who are your closest friends? And do they look like this? If they do, it might be time to make a change. Because these people potentially would cost you more than you realize. And it's not going to be easy, and there's going to definitely be moments that it's difficult, but your life is worth evaluating who you have around you and making some changes and making sure that your inner circle not only keeps you safe as a person, but pushes you forward as a Christian. Because our faith is hard to live when you do it alone. So make sure you have people around you that push you and spur you on. And if you are in a space where you feel like you don't know what to do, you feel overwhelmed, it's too much, please find an adult tonight. Talk to your small group leader, talk to your youth pastor or your youth leader. Find somebody to talk to about this, because who you have around you will determine what your life looks like, and if it's the wrong people in your inner circle, if you're dating the wrong person, if you have the wrong friends or influences in your life, it can cost you more than you actually think. And as we've been in this series and been evaluating relationships to not only be the healthiest person we can in relationships, we also have to consider who we're allowing in. So as we wrap up our series and head out from this moment here, I want to take a moment and pray for you. So Jesus, we love you. We thank you for Samson's story. We thank you for how we can learn from it and grow from it. And ultimately, God, there are some students in this room right now that need to evaluate. They need to think and consider who is in their inner circle and maybe make some difficult decisions. So right now, God, I pray for peace and boldness. I pray for peace that this is the right decision and boldness to go do it. God, you love us so much and you want us to have healthy and beautiful relationships. And so, God, thank you for this series. As we've been able to dive into this conversation, would you help us make the right steps that we need to take to be the healthiest people in relationships and have the healthiest relationships possible? So we love you, Lord. We thank you. And we pray these things in your name. Amen.